My name is Eleanor Hayes, and until the night everything fell apart, I thought the worst thing I'd ever have to worry about was whether my clients preferred brass or brushed nickel. I was 31, a residential interior designer in a small but growing suburb outside Savannah, and I'd always believed my biggest obstacles were fabric delays and indecisive homeowners. I was wrong. The real enemy was sitting in my own family smiling at me across holiday dinners pretending to cheer me on. If I had known that a simple voice recording one she never meant for me to hear would tear my world open, I might have braced myself, but betrayal never comes when you're ready. It was a quiet Thursday evening, the kind where the world feels soft around the edges. I had a candle burning, a design vlog playing in the background, and a glass of chilled white wine sitting beside me. I was halfway through revising a color palette for a lake house remodel when my phone buzzed with a notification. A voice message from my older sister Caroline. The preview read, "For Mom." I smiled without thinking. Maybe she'd sent an update about the retirement brunch we were planning for Mom. Maybe she'd forwarded a sweet memory. Maybe, just maybe, she'd said something kind about me. I pressed play. What came through the speaker wasn't sweet. It wasn't kind. It was Caroline's voice, smooth-clipped, confident, twisted with contempt. "Mom, can you believe her? Eleanor walks around like she's some real designer now. These tiny contracts she brags about, it's embarrassing. I swear the way she talks about her business, you'd think she was running $1 million firm." I froze, my ears rang. She kept going. "And honestly, Mom, I'm exhausted pretending she's doing something impressive. That girl is so insecure she follows any compliment like a starving dog. If her clients knew how unsure she really is, they'd never hire her." A laugh, sharp, dismissive, followed. "I only hype her up because you like hearing it, but good Lord, it's tiring keeping her illusions alive." The world around me fell silent. Even the candle flames seemed to stop moving. That wasn't a slip of the tongue. That wasn't a bad day. That was a script. Practiced. Polished. The version of me she'd been presenting to our mother and maybe to everyone else for years. My chest tightened. Shame, anger, grief, they crashed over me all at once. But beneath all of it, under layers of hurt I had never dared peel back, something else surfaced. A cold, clear resolve. I replayed the message, hands trembling. When it ended, I sat very still and whispered out loud just to hear it. "No more." By morning, I expected tears, puffy eyes, a hoarse throat from crying into my pillow. But instead, I woke with a list forming in my mind, each bullet sharp as glass. Step 1. Listen again. Don't pretend I misheard. Step 2. Acknowledge that the sister I adored did not adore me back. Step 3. Decide who I wanted to be now that the illusion was gone. Step 4. Remove myself from any shadow she cast. Caroline wasn't just my sister. She was also a polished, ruthless project manager at a luxury real estate firm, one of the most connected women in Savannah's design and development scene. She had offered me a small corner of her office when I started my business, calling it her little donation to my dreams. I always felt grateful. Now I understood it was a leash. That morning I drove downtown with a cardboard box in my back seat, the voice memo echoing through my skull like a warning bell. The office building gleamed in the sunlight, marble floors, brass railings, air that smelled faintly of expensive perfume. Caroline's world. I rode the elevator in silence. When the doors opened, my tiny workspace greeted me exactly as I left it. Fabric swatches sorted by tone, pinned inspiration boards, a rendered sketch of a sunroom project I was proud of. I packed everything. Not dramatically, not angrily, just deliberately. Every sketch pad, every sample strip, every trace that I existed under her roof. I placed my office keycard on her desk, beside the photograph she once joked I'd never afford to frame myself. No yelling, no accusations, just ending. As I carried the box down to my car, I opened my calendar, and that's when I saw it. A date circled in bold red. Caroline's luxury real estate showcase. 10 days from now. Developers, investors, magazine editors, architects, interior designers, the entire regional industry would be there. It was her masterpiece, her moment to shine. And suddenly an idea formed so cleanly it felt like it had been waiting for me. What if I didn't hide anymore? What if I didn't let her version of me define how I walked into a room? What if in the one place she expected me to stay small, I showed everyone the full truth of who I actually was? Step 5. Outgrow her. Publicly. Not by attacking, but by becoming undeniable. I exhaled, feeling the shift inside me. Revenge didn't have to look like fire. Sometimes it looked like stepping out of someone else's shadow and letting the world see you. And I knew just who I needed to talk to first. The cafe on Monroe Street was already buzzing when I walked in. Warm wood tables, chalkboard menus, soft jazz looping through speakers. It had always been a safe place for me. Today, I needed that safety more than ever. And there she was, Margaret Sloane, decorator, mentor, friend. Her silver hair was clipped neatly behind her ears, reading glasses perched on the tip of her nose, a tape measure sticking out of her tote bag like always. She looked up smiling until she saw my face. "Ellie, honey, what happened?" I didn't bother with small talk. I slid into the seat across from her and placed my phone on the table like evidence in a trial. "I need you to listen to something I said," my voice steadier than I felt. "And please believe me, I didn't send it to myself." Her brows knitted, concern replacing warmth. "Why would you even say that?" I hit play. The sound of Caroline's voice filled the cafe between the clinking cups and murmured conversations. Insults, mockery, false support. The revelation that my sister had been performing approval while feeding my mother a completely different script. Margaret didn't interrupt once. She just listened, jaw-tightening, eyes narrowing as the truth unfolded. When the memo ended, she leaned back slowly, exhaling like she'd been holding her breath the entire time. "Lord have mercy," she whispered. "Ellie, that isn't competitiveness. That's cruelty. Calculated cruelty." "She sent it to me by accident," I murmured. "It was meant for Mom." Margaret pressed her lips together. "And your mother, she believes both of us," I said quietly. "But Caroline's always been the confident one, the polished one. When she jokes about me being sensitive or still getting on my feet, people laugh. Even I laugh." I looked at the table, at the faint coffee rings on the wood. "Until last night." Margaret nodded slowly. "When I was younger, I worked under a senior designer who did this to me. Praised me in public, then told clients behind my back that I wasn't ready to handle major projects. Took me years to rebuild my reputation." "What did you do?" I asked softly. "I left," she said simply. And then I made sure my work drowned out her words. "But I never had what you have, Ellie." She tapped my phone. "Proof." I swallowed. "I don't want to just send her a message and walk away," I confessed. "I want to stop letting her control the way people see me." Margaret's eyes sharpened with understanding. "You're thinking about her showcase." Of course she sensed it. She knew the industry better than anyone. She knew what a night like that meant. "It's the perfect place," I said. "The entire regional real estate and design scene will be there. The same people Caroline has spent years telling quietly that I'm the little sister tagging along." "And you want to change that narrative," Margaret murmured. "Yes, not by attacking her. No, by showing them who you really are." I nodded. Margaret tapped a finger thoughtfully against her mug. "The main sponsor is Fulton Ridge Development, right? Their regional rep loves fresh voices. If you pitch a design philosophy segment, something immersive, something emotional, they might insist you be part of the program." My heart skipped. "You think so?" "Ellie," she said, leaning forward. "Your work is good. Not good for a beginner. Good, period. And you have something she doesn't, which is a story people will resonate with. Working from nothing, building your name, pushing past family expectations. Developers eat that up." I hesitated, then whispered, "Is it petty to even think about exposing her?" Margaret shook her head slowly. "Petty is hiding the remote from your husband because he won't stop watching football. This, this is reclaiming your narrative after years of being minimized, and only you can decide how far you want to go." Her words settled into my chest like warm stones. "Ask yourself this," she said gently. "Do you want to destroy her or free yourself?" I thought of Caroline at 13, furious when she didn't get the lead role in the school play. At 19, crying when she didn't get the internship she wanted. At 27, smiling at me with pride while quietly diminishing me when I wasn't listening. Did her pain excuse what she did? No. But it made it understandable. "I don't want to ruin her life," I said finally. "I just want my own." Margaret smiled softly. "Then let's build a plan that does exactly that." We spent the next 2 hours sketching out options, highlighting my strongest projects, drafting an email to the sponsor, rehearsing how to speak about design and confidence without calling Caroline out directly. By the time I left, the outline wasn't just a plan, it was a beginning. The beginning of me stepping into a space I'd been taught my whole life wasn't mine to inhabit. And 10 days later, under the warm Savannah evening sky, I would walk straight into the lion's den, her showcase, and reveal a truth she never expected. I wasn't her shadow anymore. The night of the showcase arrived wrapped in southern humidity, the kind that clung to your skin like a second layer. The venue, a restored riverfront warehouse, glowed with soft amber lights, hinting at luxury from the parking lot. I stood outside the glass doors, smoothing the front of my slate blue blouse, staring at my own reflection, superimposed against the bustling event behind me. Inside were people who had known me only as Caroline's little sister. Tonight I needed them to meet me. Eleanor Hayes, designer creator, someone who had earned her own spot in this world. I stepped inside. Cool air music with too much bass, clusters of executives in tailored suits, local magazine editors sipping rosé, and floral installations so dramatic they could have been in a national exhibit. Everything, every sign, every light, every sip of champagne screamed Caroline. She knew how to make a room bow to her. And tonight she expected me to bow too. Eleanor, a bright voice, called. It was the regional rep from Fulton Ridge, the sponsor. A petite woman named Dana with short cropped curls and a blazer that probably cost more than my monthly rent. We are thrilled you agreed to present. Your segment is exactly the depth this event needs. My heart leaped because it meant one thing. She approved my pitch. Before Caroline could block it, "Thank you," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm honored you thought of me." "Oh, honey, we didn't think of you," she laughed. "We recognized you." The words almost knocked me off my feet. As I thanked her, I caught movement over her shoulder, Caroline striding through a crowd like she was parting the Red Sea. Her smile was bright enough to fool nearly anyone who didn't know her, but I saw the stiffness in her jaw, the cold narrowing of her eyes. She'd found out, and she wasn't pleased. Dana excused herself, and Caroline closed in heels, clicking sharply across polished floors. "You look unexpectedly polished," she said, her tone sweet and poisonous at the same time. "Though I suppose even you can pull yourself together when there's an audience." "I'm glad you like it," I replied. Her smile thinned. "So, I heard Fulton Ridge added you to the program," she said. "Interesting choice." Interesting. The same word she always used when she disliked something but didn't want to appear threatened. "They think my perspective will add value," I said evenly. "Oh, honey," Caroline said softly, leaning in. "You are here because of me. My connections, my sponsors, my guest list. I built this stage. You're just standing on it. Do both of us a favor and don't embarrass yourself." There it was again, small. That word she wielded like a blade. "You're not in charge of my voice anymore," I said quietly. Her eyes flashed. "I was never in charge," she hissed. "I was helping you." "Then why did you tell Mom?" Her expression went still, carefully blank. "You have no idea what you think you have, Ellie," she whispered sharply. "Don't push this." But the recording existed and she knew it. Before she could say more, someone called her name and she drifted away. Smiles snapping instantly back into place, the chameleon she'd mastered being all her life. I watched her go. And instead of shrinking inside myself, I felt something ignite. I belonged here, not because she allowed it, but because I earned it. Tonight would prove that, not with revenge for revenge's sake, but with truth sharp enough to cut through every lie she'd built around me. Chapter 4. The presentation, the reveal, the confrontation sparks. The MC stepped onto the small stage in the center of the venue, microphone in hand, voice booming through the speakers. "And now we're thrilled to welcome a fresh voice in Southern residential design. Please give a warm welcome to interior designer, Eleanor Hayes." My stomach tightened. For a heartbeat, my legs felt like water. Then I walked into the spotlight. The crowd fell quiet. Facing them, I saw faces familiar from magazine spreads, contractor meetings, client brunches. People who only knew me as an extension of my sister. "Not tonight." "Hello," I began, my voice steady. "I'm Eleanor. I design spaces for people who don't just want something beautiful, they want something that feels like home." A few nods, a few curious tilts of heads. I clicked to my first slide. A cramped bungalow kitchen I'd transformed into a warm, functional family space. Then a small salon I redesigned to incorporate sustainable materials, one that doubled its revenue in 6 months. I walked them through color theory, light flow, emotional design principles. And for the first time, I wasn't speaking as someone's guest. I was speaking as myself. Confidence grew as murmurs rippled through the crowd. Good murmurs impressed ones. People whispered to each other, glancing at the screen, then at me. Halfway through, I shifted to a slide with no pictures, just words. When support isn't support. A low ripple went through the audience recognition, curiosity, anticipation. I breathed in slowly. We talk a lot in this industry about connections, how important it is to be lifted up by others. But sometimes the people who claim to lift us quietly press us down. Movement at the edge of the stage caught my eye. Caroline, watching arms crossed, smile gone. Good. For years I continued. I thought I was lucky. Lucky to have someone older, more established, willing to guide me. I thought their jokes were harmless. I thought I was being sensitive when I felt belittled. I told myself gratitude meant silence. The room stilled. But sometimes I said softly, you accidentally hear the truth. Gasps, whispers, a wave of tension swept across the crowd. Caroline took a step forward. I didn't look away. I'm not here to air private drama, I said. I'm here because I spent too long letting someone else narrate my story. Tonight is the first time the voice people hear is mine. Caroline stepped onto the stage. Okay, that's enough, she snapped loud enough for the entire room to hear. This is unprofessional, Eleanor. You need to stop. A hush fell. I lowered the microphone slightly. This is exactly the problem, I said gently. Every time I tried to speak up, you shut me down. You told people I was exaggerating. You told Mom I was embarrassing you. Caroline's face flushed. You're twisting things. I have the recording. A collective inhale swept the room. Her eyes grew wide. You wouldn't dare. I don't need to play it, I said, just knowing I could is enough. A tension-filled silence stretched between us, years of swallowed hurt condensing into one moment. This isn't what support looks like, I said softly to the audience, then to her. And I won't pretend anymore. One woman in the front row started clapping, then another, then more. Caroline's face crumpled, then hardened, then broke into something desperate. You'll regret this, she whispered. Maybe, I said. But at least the picture is honest now. She turned sharply and walked off stage. For the first time in my life, I didn't follow. The applause still echoed in my ears long after I stepped off the stage. It wasn't thunderous, not some roaring standing ovation meant for a Broadway star, no. It was something humbler, more profound. A quiet endorsement. A small but undeniable acknowledgement that I had finally stepped into myself. But when the adrenaline drained from my body, my hands began to shake. I slipped behind a curtain near the back of the venue, leaning against a brick wall, as the magnitude of what I'd done settled in. My chest tightened, my throat prickled. I rubbed my hands together, grounding myself the way Margaret once taught me, pressing my fingers to my palm one by one. Then people found me. A restaurant owner who loved my concept for flexible seating in small spaces. A boutique developer curious about my lighting approach. A couple who'd recently downsized and needed a designer who understood emotional space. Every question about my work steadied me, anchoring me back into the world I was claiming. Every nod, every scribbled note, every, "Do you have a card?" chipped away at the voice that had whispered, I was nothing without my sister. I wasn't Eleanor who tagged along anymore. I was Eleanor who created. When the crowd finally thinned, Margaret appeared, her eyes glistening with pride as she pulled me into a tight hug. You were extraordinary, she said into my hair. Incredible or insane, I muttered. Both, she laughed. But sometimes the truth requires a little insanity. I smiled weakly, but the image of Caroline's face, flushed, panicked, desperate, stayed lodged in my chest like a thorn. By the time I drove home, my phone buzzed nonstop. Supportive texts, curious messages from colleagues, even a small design blog asking for an interview. Then one notification that made my blood turn cold. Mom. Her message appeared like a verdict. She says you humiliated her. She's sobbing. What happened? I sat on the edge of my bed, rereading the words until they blurred. My mother was gentle, soft-spoken, a woman who smoothed conflict instead of confronting it. She adored both of us, but she had always believed Caroline was the steady one, the one who would carry the family name with grace. I typed, Mom, she sent you a memo about me. She meant to send it to you, but it came to me instead. You heard what she said. I didn't play it. I didn't expose her. I just stopped pretending it didn't exist. A long pause. Then, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I should have protected you more. I believed her jokes were harmless. I didn't see the harm they were doing. Tears finally pricked my eyes. I don't need you to take sides, I wrote, but I can't play the role she wrote for me anymore. Over the next few days, fallout spread like wildfire. A gossip page posted a vague, blind item sister showdown at Savannah Luxury Showcase. Betrayal. Recording public confrontation. Who are the sisters? Comments exploded, speculation swirled. A longtime client emailed me. This won't affect our project timeline, will it? I reassured them quickly, and then worked late into the night polishing their renderings. Meanwhile, word trickled back through mutual acquaintances that Caroline had lost one of her biggest corporate clients. Quietly. No explanation given, just hesitation, uncertainty, a desire to avoid risk. Then came her Instagram post, a polished paragraph about the challenges of being an older sibling, about being misunderstood, about boundaries being crossed in a professional environment. The comments were split. Some praised her vulnerability. Others, people who had worked with both of us, left more pointed remarks. Sometimes accountability feels like betrayal to the one who avoids it. I didn't respond. I didn't add fuel. I didn't even post a counter message. I focused on my work. But silence can be heavier than any confrontation. One evening, after hours spent fine-tuning a mood board for a coastal home, I collapsed on my couch and let the quiet wash over me. No music, no chatter, no distractions. Just me and the weight of everything. Had I gone too far? The question, unwelcome but persistent, threaded through my mind. Yes, she hurt me, deeply. Yes, she minimized my work for years. Yes, the memo was unforgivable. But I had chosen the stage. I had chosen an audience. I had chosen to let people see a wound still bleeding. For the first time, I allowed myself to admit revenge, even when justified, comes wrapped in consequences. Pain doesn't evaporate because justice feels satisfying. It lingers, shadowing the edges of what should be triumph. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. We need to talk. Cafe on 11th, tomorrow, noon. I didn't need a name. I felt the truth settle in my stomach like a stone. Caroline. Tomorrow would not be about rehashing the past. It would be about what would come next for her, for me, for whatever remained of the sisterhood we both inherited, yet failed to protect. The cafe on 11th was quieter than the one Margaret preferred. Dimmer lighting, fewer customers, the kind of place where people whispered instead of spoke. A neutral battlefield. I arrived early, ordered a coffee I didn't want, and sat by the window. My hands wrapped around the warm cup, trying to absorb some kind of steady from it. Caroline walked in exactly at noon, still impeccably dressed, cream blazer, gold earrings, hair smooth and perfect, but her eyes looked tired. She sat without greeting, her movements precise but shaky. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she exhaled sharply. I lost the Waverly account, she said, the one I've been chasing for a year. They said they don't want their brand tied to unresolved drama. She stared at the sugar packets like they held answers she couldn't bear to face. And Mom cries every time I call, she added, voice tightening. She says she feels like she failed us. Guilt twisted inside me, but I didn't let it take over. Not this time. I'm not happy you lost a client, I said softly. And whatever you may think of me, I don't want your life falling apart. She let out a short, bitter laugh. Could have fooled me. I held her gaze. If I wanted to destroy you, I would have played the memo in that room. Her jaw clenched. Her eyes darted to mine. You didn't have to say a thing, she whispered. People heard enough. That wasn't about punishing you, I said. It was about stepping out from under you. A pause. A breath. Something shifted in her face, defensiveness, thinning, exhaustion showing through. When Mom sent me the screenshot that you got the memo, she said quietly, I panicked. I told her it was nothing, that you were blowing it out of proportion. She rubbed her forehead. I thought if I controlled the narrative fast enough, it would disappear, like it always does. Not this time. You've controlled this narrative for years, I said. About me, about my insecurities, about my career. She didn't deny it. You don't understand what it's been like, she said suddenly, voice cracking. Being told I was the responsible one, the successful one, the example. And then she gestured with a trembling hand, you start this sweet, cute little business, and Mom starts sending me your work, talking about how proud she is. The bitterness in her voice was startling. You felt threatened by that, I whispered. Yes, she snapped, tears welling. I did. She blinked hard, mascara smudging slightly. And I didn't know what to do with that, except make you smaller in my head and in my words, so I didn't have to feel like I was failing. It was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. So you tore me down to hold your place, I murmured. She flinched, but she didn't deny it. I'm not a monster, she whispered. I posted your work. I recommended you. I showed up for you. And then you called me pathetic when you thought I couldn't hear you, I said. Her chin trembled. I was venting. Venting once is venting. Venting for years is cruelty. And doing it with power over me, that's not venting. That's abuse. She inhaled sharply as if I'd slapped her. I softened my voice. I'm not saying you're evil, Caroline. I'm saying your behavior damaged me. And if I confronted you privately, you would have laughed, dismissed, redirected, turned it into a guilt trip. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Yeah, she whispered. I probably would have. Silence pressed around us. You made me the villain, she said quietly. No, I said gently. You made yourself the villain. I just stopped rewriting the script. She looked down, tears finally spilling. Can we fix this? She whispered. Her vulnerability gutted me. But truth required something harder than comfort. I don't know, I said honestly. But we can build something new, slowly, with boundaries. Her eyes lifted wet and searching. What kind of boundaries? For starters, I said you don't get to comment on my career as if you built it. No more jokes at my expense. And if you're upset with me, you talk to me, not mom, not coworkers. She absorbed that silently. And in return, she asked. In return, I said I won't drag your name through the mud. If anyone asks, I'll say we had a conflict and we're working on it or not, but I will never turn your worst moment into entertainment. She looked stunned, then relieved, then ashamed. Finally, softly, almost breaking, I'm sorry. Not theatrical, not defensive, just small, real. Not enough to erase the past, but enough to acknowledge it. I appreciate that, I said quietly, but healing is my job, not yours. We finished our coffee in silence. When we stood, she hesitated. If I call, will you answer? I inhaled slowly. Maybe, I said, depending on why you're calling. She nodded. Fair. We walked outside into the bright Savannah sun together, but not touching. At the corner, our paths split. She turned left toward the skyline she curated so carefully. I walked straight toward the neighborhood where I fought to build myself. My phone buzzed. An email. Eleanor. We loved your segment. Would you speak at our upcoming regional design conference about owning your work and your voice? A slow, astonished smile spread across my face, not because I wanted to use Caroline for content, but because for the first time ever, someone wanted me. Not the sister, not the tag-along, not the accessory. Me. For the next several weeks, life didn't return to normal, because there was no normal left. What existed before the showcase had been an illusion, a performance I didn't know I was part of. Now every choice, every silence, every email felt different because I was different. Work picked up faster than I expected. The small design blog published their interview with me, When Family Undermines Your Voice, a designer's journey toward self-ownership. It wasn't salacious. It was honest. It talked about confidence boundaries and rebuilding a career without mentioning Caroline by name. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive. But Caroline, she went quiet. No Instagram posts, no LinkedIn updates, no text messages to the family group chat. Mom checked on both of us daily, her voice trembling with an anxiety I recognized too well. Mothers tend to blame themselves for storms they never created. She's hurting, sweetheart, Mom said one night over the phone. She won't admit it, but she is. I know, I whispered. And you, Mom asked softly? Are you hurting? I hesitated, looking around my living room. My samples, my tools, my sketches, my worlds. For so long, they'd felt like borrowed things, like props someone else allowed me to hold. Now they felt like mine. I'm healing, I finally said, slowly. But healing didn't always feel light. Some days it felt like dragging myself through thick mud, while the memory of my sister's voice whispered in the back of my ear, embarrassing, insecure, pathetic. I fought those whispers by working. Design became therapy. Patterns became clarity. Color choices became reclamation. Yet even as my confidence rebuilt, the consequences of that showcase rippled into places I didn't expect. A cousin messaged me. I always wondered why she talked over you at holidays. An old roommate wrote, she used to tell people you were still figuring yourself out. I'm sorry. A former coworker of hers DM'd me. She was threatened by you. Everybody saw it but you. Each message was a confirmation and a bruise. Even more surprising were the people who had quietly felt the way I had. It's wild how many women wrote to me. My sister did the same. My brother sabotaged my promotion. My mother praises my sister no matter what. I didn't realize it was abuse. I realized something important then. My story wasn't uncommon. My pain wasn't unique. But my decision to step out of the shadow, that was something many women my age, my mother's age, and especially the women who watched YouTube revenge stories at night understood in their bones. And yet, Despite all the messages, there was still one voice I hadn't heard. Caroline. Until one evening her name lit up my screen. I stared at the call until it stopped ringing. Not yet. Not until I was strong enough not to bend myself into old shapes. I wasn't avoiding her. I was protecting myself. Healing is fragile before it becomes power, and I wasn't ready to break again. Not for her. Not yet. By early spring, my life took on a new rhythm. My calendar filled with consultations. My inbox had more inquiries than I could handle. The regional design conference confirmed my speaking slot, and the organizer told me your story resonated with our audience more than any pitch we received this year. My story. A few months earlier, I didn't even think I had one. The day I received the conference packet, I let myself breathe in the validation, the pride, the quiet satisfaction. My work was being valued on its own merit. The dream I'd struggled to articulate for years now had weight. Substance. Recognition. Yet success didn't silence the past. It made it louder. One afternoon, while reviewing tile samples for a client's master bathroom, my phone buzzed with a text from Caroline. "Can you talk today?" I stared at it. Not angry, not afraid, just cautious. I typed back, "Not today, soon." She replied, "Okay." It was the first boundary I'd ever given her, and the first she had ever accepted. But that didn't erase the undercurrent of tension running through our family. Easter dinner was the first holiday we spent together after the showcase. The air was thick, full of unsaid things. Mom hovered between us like she was afraid we'd ignite. Caroline stayed quiet, softer than usual, smaller. I almost didn't recognize her. At one point while clearing the table, she whispered near me, "I'm trying." It wasn't an apology, it wasn't an accusation, it was a beginning. I nodded without looking at her. "I see that." It was the best I could offer. It was enough for now. Still, the wound hadn't fully closed. Healing required truth, and truth required time. And then came the invitation that would shift everything. The Savannah Home and Lifestyle magazine wanted to feature one of my projects in editorial spread. A full-page profile, a photographer, a writer, a whole article dedicated to my work, my voice. The kind of thing Caroline had always said I would never be ready for. I accepted immediately. But 2 days later, the writer called and asked gently, "We would like to include a section about your journey, specifically what happened at the showcase. Are you willing to talk about it on record?" My breath caught. Public, permanent, irrevocable. If I spoke, the truth would live in print forever. If I stayed silent, the narrative might twist again. That night, I sat on my porch, watching the streetlights glow against the Georgia dusk. I thought about everything I'd lost, everything I'd gained, and everything I wanted to become. Margaret called just as I was sorting through my thoughts. "You sound torn," she said. "I am. Sweetheart, telling your story doesn't mean destroying hers. It means owning your life, your voice, your space. You get to decide how much you share. But you also get to decide what chapter comes next." That was when I realized something. I didn't need revenge anymore. I needed truth, I needed closure, and I needed freedom. I called the writer back. "Yes," I said, "I'm ready." But the world wasn't ready for what came next. Because Caroline found out, and the past wasn't ready to stay buried. Not yet. The article hadn't even been printed yet. The interview wasn't even done. But word travels fast in a city like Savannah, especially in design circles. Caroline showed up at my house unannounced 3 evenings later. Her knock wasn't frantic, but it wasn't calm either. A kind of desperate tap disguised as confidence. When I opened the door, her face was stiff, her eyes red, her voice tight. "Are you serious?" she asked. "You're going to tell the world what happened?" I stepped aside, motioning her in. She walked past me, pacing my living room like she used to when preparing a pitch. "You said you wouldn't drag my name through the mud." "I'm not," I said softly. "I'm speaking my truth, without naming you." She laughed bitterly. "Everyone will know." "Everyone already knows," I said. "The moment you interrupted my presentation, the moment you confronted me on stage, people saw the real dynamic." Her shoulders slumped. For the first time, she looked fragile. "This will ruin me," she whispered. The old Eleanor, desperate for approval, terrified of conflict, would have apologized immediately. But I wasn't her anymore. "Caroline," I said gently, "you ruined this by the way you treated me, not the other way around." She shook her head violently. "You're rewriting everything." "No," I said calmly, "I'm finally telling it." She sank onto my couch, burying her face in her hands. "I'm losing clients," she whispered. "People keep asking questions. Mom can't sleep. I feel like I'm drowning." "I don't want that," I said quietly. "I never wanted that." Then she lifted her head, her voice cracking. Then why didn't you come to me privately? Why did you make it public? I inhaled slowly, the truth finally ready to rise. Because privately, you never listened. Privately, you always won. Privately, you always made me feel like I was the problem. On that stage for the first time, you couldn't twist the narrative. Her eyes widened, hurt, recognition, regret all flashing at once. I sat across from her. I'm not writing lies, I said. I'm writing what it feels like to grow up in someone's shadow, to be minimized, to reclaim your voice. She looked down at her hands. What if I'm not ready for people to see who I really am? That's not mine to fix, I said softly. Silence hung between us, thick, heavy, necessary. Finally, she whispered, I'm sorry. I know, I said. And I accept that. But an apology doesn't erase the harm, it just acknowledges it. She nodded, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. Can we rebuild? She asked. I thought of the little girl who used to braid my hair, the teenager who borrowed my sweaters without asking, the woman who alternated between loving me fiercely and cutting me quietly. I think we can build something new, I said, but it won't look like before, and it will take time. She nodded again, standing slowly. When the article comes out, she whispered, can you send me a copy before it prints? I will. She gave a small, grateful nod, then left my house the way someone leaves a funeral. Quiet, heavy, changed, but not destroyed. The article dropped 3 weeks later. Front page of the design section. Full spread. Photos of my work, clean lines, warm palettes, grounded storytelling. And the title, She Found Her Voice, A Designer's Journey Out of the Shadows. I didn't name Caroline. I didn't describe the memo. I didn't recount the showcase confrontation. I wrote this instead. For years, I thought humility meant silence. I thought gratitude meant shrinking myself to make others comfortable. But design taught me that negative space isn't emptiness, it's intention. And I had to clear the space around my own life to see my work clearly. Women wrote to me from across the country. This is my story. My sister always made me feel small. Thank you for saying what I've never been able to say. Clients booked faster than I could onboard them. And Caroline, she called me 20 minutes after the article went live. I read it, she said. And it was fair, she whispered. Painful, but fair. That was the closest we'd ever come to mutual understanding. Later, Mom invited us both to dinner. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't strained either. Caroline even asked me quietly how my latest kitchen project was going, and for once her tone didn't hide a blade. We weren't healed, but we were healing. Summer brought new clients, new partnerships, and a new version of myself I was still learning to inhabit. Stronger, clearer, unapologetic in ways that felt foreign and thrilling. At the regional conference, I spoke to a full room. I talked about design, yes, but also about identity boundaries, recovering from toxic family dynamics and reclaiming your narrative. Women cried. They lined up afterward. They thanked me for saying what they'd lived. One said, your story helped me confront my daughter. I feel free. Another whispered, my older sister still treats me like I'm 12. I'm 62. It struck me then. This wasn't just my story. It was ours. When I returned home, there was a small package waiting at my door. Inside was a framed photo of me and Caroline as kids covered in mud from playing in the backyard, grinning with missing teeth. A note attached. I'm still learning how to be your sister. Thank you for giving me the chance. See. I pressed the frame to my chest. Forgiveness is not erasure. Healing is not forgetting. But growth is possible even from the ruins. On a warm October afternoon, I stood in my studio, my real studio, not a borrowed corner in someone else's empire. Sunlight streamed across my drafting table as I organized samples for a new project. My phone buzzed. An invitation from a national design summit. They wanted me to speak. Not Caroline's sister, not the girl trying to make it, not the accessory or the afterthought. Me. I smiled. Not because I needed to gloat, not because I wanted Caroline to suffer, but because the truth had finally taken shape. Revenge isn't always fire and fury. Sometimes revenge is simply stepping into the space they swore you could never fill. Sometimes it's growing so loudly that their narrative dissolves. Sometimes it's choosing your own reflection over the distorted one they offered. I thought about Caroline still rebuilding, still unlearning, still trying. We weren't what we used to be, and maybe that was the point. My name is Eleanor Hayes. I'm a real designer with real work and a real voice. And the only apology I owe is to myself for waiting so long to take up space that was mine all along. If you made it to the end of my story, thank you. And if any part of it reminded you of your own life, tell me in the comments, tell me your story, tell me when you finally took up space, because I promise someone out there needs to hear it.